Good morning and half a day. Ooh, that's loud. Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Thursday, May 19, 2022, and the time now is 9:02. Notice for this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on May 11th, followed by May 16th. Committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR as introduced by Committee on Rules by the request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Governor of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Office of Public Accountability. I'd like to acknowledge the senators that have joined me today, my colleague, Senator Tony Atta. Those testifying on Bill 276 relative to Office of Public Accountability are invited to the panel, and we have Speaker Cruz present this morning, the Public Auditor, and we have Vincent Duenas. The general rules for this public hearing is written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony once you are done. Please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony that may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. I'd ask the panel that if you recognize that there's a personal inference on you by anyone, raise your hand and I will address that accordingly. And that same rule applies to the senators. Any violation of this general rule will result in removal from the budget hearing room. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency or department for response. Please state your name and your title for the record. At this time, I'd like to also recognize that we're joined also by Vice Speaker Tina Rose Mooney-Barnes and Senator Tello Tadiwi. I ask the Sergeant Arms I would ask the panel members to please rise for our Sergeant Arms to swear you all in.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information provided today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Mr. Chair, you're under oath. Mrs. Mossy.
Thank you, Sergeant Arms. I'd like to also recognize that not only am I joined by the Vice Speaker, but she's the oversight for the Office of Public Accounting. I'll now ask Speaker Cruz to please begin your testimony on your budget, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The Office of Public Accountability is pleased to present our fiscal year 2023 budget request of $1,680,291, which includes $1.37 million to fund our current staff complement of 12. It was 12 when we submitted the budget bill. And as of today, we now have 14. We filled 2 additional positions. This budget request also includes $309,000 to fund rent and other contractual obligations, inclusive of funding for procurement appeals, hearing officers, website, audit software license and maintenance, and utilities. The attached PowerPoint presentation details the OPA's accomplishment for this year, as well as the OPA's audit and procurement appeal plans to achieve our goals. During 2021, we issued 9 performance audits, had oversight over 28 financial audits, and administered 15 procurement appeals. These audits identified over $6.3 million in financial impact and represented over $2.9 million in procurement value for the appeals. Our office also updated the audit contracts for 2 Government of Guam agencies with a specific provision to issue financial audits no later than March 31st after the fiscal year ends. As of today, our staff complement stands at 14, including myself. Over the last 2 years, at least 10 employees have left the Office of Public Accountability, many of them having received double-digit increases in salary at their new positions. Several of them hold supervisory and managerial level responsibilities in our office. Of the 14 staff left, only 3 individuals have more than 10 years of auditing experience. One has a little more than 5 years, and the majority of our auditors, 8 as of today, have less than 2 years of experience. As OPA works on filling positions with new staff, it would be helpful to bring some parity with the autonomous and semi-autonomous agencies that continue to have higher levels of positions not unique to these agencies, but are also common throughout the government of Guam, but at a lower salary. An updated salary scale policy based on highest salary paid by those agencies for comparable education, certification, training, and experience is needed for the OPA to attract, preserve, and sustain professional staff. However, in the interim, we have asked the Director of the Department of Administration to implement the recommended pay grades in the Leading Edge study that was conducted in 2014 that may help to our retention issues immediately. At this point, I'd like to digress, Mr. Chairman, and I think in our PowerPoint presentations that you have, I've included a comparison study. And I note that Senator Talatadegui is here, and I want to thank her and Senator Joanne Brown for the introduction of Bill 302. One of the sections includes a provision to direct the Director of Administration and the public auditor to meet to try to compare the salaries and see if there's any way that we can get comparable salaries. I present to you a salary comparison study of our auditor, accountability auditor 1s, 2s, and 3s. You will note just from the very start, on the top chart, that beginning with auditor 1s, the Office of Public Accountability is way below some of the other agencies. The Port Authority pays $14,000, $14,990 more than we do for starting salary of a 1. And you'll see the rest of the agencies there. We've made comparisons with not only accountants, auditors, and in some of the agencies, they've created new positions of utility auditors. So we made the comparisons of the salaries, and you can see that even in the one position that we are really, really down. But fortunately, we are able to attract people who want to come and start with us, because at least we train them. But as soon as we get them into 2s, they are poached by other agencies. You'll note if you go to the second page and you see the comparison study of the positions of Auditor 2, you will see that, just the last person to leave my office was an Auditor 2. He was making $40,762. We had just promoted him to 2. In March, he left to go to GPA because of GPA, he got a $21,347 increase. That's more than 50%. And that's just those 2. For 3s, it's almost the same thing. I had 4 3s at the beginning of the fiscal year. In November, I lost 1 who went to the federal government for a higher salary. But as you can see, for Auditor 3s, Mr. Chairman, every morning I wake up and I pray that when one of my threes walks into my office, it's not to hand me an envelope that says, I'm giving 2 weeks' notice. The gentleman sitting next to me, Vince, has received 3 offers from other agencies to go. I pray and I thank that he stayed with me. I have 2 others, threes that have with me, and I fear that they're going to be poached at some point because of the salary differential. You can see that the autonomous agencies pay over 50% more than we do. Our starting salary is 49, and they're already up at, they start at 75. I'm not sure whether, and I see Senator Joanne Brown here. Before you came in, I thanked you for the introduction of 302. But in the interim, as I mentioned in my testimony, Mr. Chairman, I've asked the Director of Administration to immediately implement the leading edge study. When I was in your position, and my predecessor was in this position, and she kept insisting on getting increases, I recommended to her that she go out and do a salary study and create unique positions, and so she did. She went to Leading Edge, and Leading Edge did a full-on study. I would copy it for you, except it's over almost 100 pages. You can go to the OPA website, and when you do the drop screen, go to About Us, then go to Financial Information, and then scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see the Leading Edge study in there. I can email it to all of you after the hearing. But the Leading Edge study was completed. Unfortunately, when it went to the Department of Administration, they downgraded the positions. Positions that should have been S were made R or Q, and instead of the higher salaries. And so I've also done on the bottom half of the page a comparison with the Leading Edge study. And even with the Leading Edge study, but please remember this is 8 years old now, and I know that the government is planning on doing another Hayes study or another salary study. But at least with this, there's, almost a 10% increase that we could receive immediately. As I said, I've asked the the Director of Administration to implement this Leading Edge study. I'm not sure whether or not he can do it, and the study that was being proposed in Bill 302 may not be addressed for a while. I know that the administration is going from profession to profession in addressing the salary increases. I think the first were the police and the nurses, and then just most recently the teachers. I've been getting messages from my friends that are at CPS because they keep asking, when are we going to be addressed? And so I know that there's a hierarchy, and I recognize that addressing the salaries of auditors and accountants in the government of Guam to bring parity is not that high in the salary scale, especially when there's only 14 people there. I mean, it's not like 4,000 teachers that need to be addressed. So I'm not sure when it's going to be done, but I think if maybe even in the budget bill, you might just put a provision that says the Leading Edge study shall be implemented forthwith or upon passage of the bill. That at least gives me some ability to be able to talk to my threes that are still with me and say, this is just a small down payment. I promise I'm going to be, to negotiate for as high a salary as we can. Please stay with me. Because it's impossible. All the performance audits that we do, the format is as follows. You have to have a team, which includes the supervising auditor. We have an auditor in charge, which would used to be a 2, but I now only have 1. And the third person is usually a new person in the office, and that's the auditor who's doing the grunt work, as it were, going out and doing the field work. And I don't have any 2s to be the auditors in charge. So the 3 3s that I have sit not only as supervising auditor, they sit as auditors in charge, and then after the audit is written, one of them who's not involved in it becomes the auditor that does the quality assurance review, because it has to be a different set of eyes that looks at it. And they're constantly, between the 3 of them, I see text messages between them, who's going to do this and who's going to, because they have to try to find fresh eyes to look at it. It has to always be a third person. We've started to use some of our senior, our auditor ones that have been there for more than a year. In fact, most of them just got their 1-year anniversary this last month. And so I'm starting to try to see if we can have them to be auditors in charge. But it is getting really difficult at the office to operate with only 3 3s, 1 1, and 8 1s, because of the way that these things have to be formatted and compliance with the General Accounting Auditing Standards Board, GASB. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll get back to my statement. I just want to also this committee and the general public to know that on December 2021, a team of auditors from the Republic of Palau, Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, and the Graduate School conducted a GASB required peer review and gave the OPA full compliance ratings, the highest rating that can be achieved in quality control review. There were no management letter comments, and the review covered performance audits in calendar year 2017 to 2019. This rating would not have been possible without the hard work, commitment, and professionalism, dedication, and attention to detail of the OPA staff. OPA's next peer review is next summer in 23, and will cover calendar year 2020, 2021, and 2022. Mr. Chairman, I think I've done my 5 minutes, and I want to thank you.
Mr. Speaker, you can go beyond 5.
Oh, that's quite all right. I'll answer questions. I think it's
okay. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that joined us. You have identified already Senator Brown and Senator Moylan's here. But, for the listening audience and to my colleagues, we did a preliminary meeting before this hearing, and we discussed the bill introduced by Senator Brown. And I did express to you that we're in agreement with it, so that Senator Brown knows and Senator Taylor understands that I'm in full support of it. I have no problem with it. I just got to find a date. And that's what my staff is looking for, is a date. And because you raised the issue of the leading edge, if we can figure out exactly what the cost is going to be so we can make it be part of the budget, I have no problem of inserting this bill that's coming up. After we hear it, put it as part of the Budget Act and make it be codified so that it's there. And then there'll be no debate that it's just in the Budget Act. No, it'll be in law. And then we can move on from there, because I'm in full support that the leading edge. But once we get to the bill, I think that will resolve that, correct? But because one of the things I did express to DOA is that they need to provide us some verbiage, and maybe yourself can assist us, so we can tell the autonomous agency that the funds that are keeping you guys alive are the same funds that are keeping the Gov Guam white. You can't keep running off on your own, autonomous agencies. You can't keep raising accountants' salary And they're not doing more than you, or they're not doing more than anybody else. And keep taking from other line agencies. That I'm full agreement with that. And I just need the verbiage, and maybe even if any of my colleagues introduce that bill, I have no problem supporting that. There's got to be some parity here. Just because you're accountant there doesn't mean that you should get paid more. Just because you're autonomous doesn't mean you can run away, because it's the same taxpayers. It's me, you, and everybody else that are paying for those power bills or water bills or whatever bills that exist. And I'm in full support of that. And with that, I'll ask the oversight chair if they want to ask any questions to the panel, and then we'll support you there, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, or Mr. Auditor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Mananasitos, Public Auditor, and Vince. Thank you very much for doing your presentation here this morning. I do have 4 questions, Mr. Auditor. Not hard at all. I guess as we look at the salary issues, and aside from that, maybe I just want to ask, are there any other challenges that the OPAs face in recruiting and retaining staff besides the salary issue? Are there any other issues that impede or prevent from picking up, or is it just literally because of the comparisons?
It is just salary. We did an open announcement, was it February? December.
Yeah.
For 3s, 2s, and 1s. Nobody applied for the 3s and the 2s. And we had a number of applicants for the 1s, but that's because the kids are hungry. I mean, you know, they want to start. And thanks to Vince, he got a DOI grant a couple of years ago, and it's in our budget presentation at the end. It's about $76,000. It's a reimbursable grant for training, and it provides for travel and for training for the staff, not for me, for the staff. It allows them to go to conferences to keep up their certifications. It allows them to go to trainings to keep up their certifications. And since I came to the office, I've instructed Vince to work with them. And in our strategic plan, we have a professional development plan. And the office actually underwrites the cost of the material to study. And we are very lenient in allowing for time to study for the exam. Because, as I tell them, you know, I don't need alphabet soup after my name, but you guys do. And it's important for, you know, to have the CPE, the CFE, the CIA, the CPA, but because it makes me proud, then I know that the work that I'm releasing from the office is done by professionals, and we have that grant. We haven't had to use it much because we couldn't travel in the last couple of years, but we have been buying, I think we have manuals for the CPA exam, the CIA exam, the CFE exam, and the staff knows that if any of them want to do that, we're willing to get it. And some of them even insist on having it audio, and so I said, all right, fine, get it audio. Whatever it is, as long as you get the certification. But then when they get certifications, they're even more attractive. But I think it's imperative that this office have the most professional staff we can possibly have.
Thank you, Mr. Auditor, for that. And maybe even continuing on to your staffing issues, I noticed in your staffing pattern that there's a number of positions, supervisory positions, that are vacant, and maybe what are the duties of those positions and what's preventing your office from filling them? Is it salary issues again compared to the other agencies?
It's salary and then qualifications.
Okay.
but it's salary, because in order to be able to fill some of the top positions, the immediate managing supervisor, my current staff could probably just qualify. But for the other positions, there would be issues of whether or not there would. And then to try to attract someone, as you can see in the study further on the pages there, for supervisory positions, we're even, again, maybe it's not the 50% difference, but it's still more than 30% difference in our supervisory positions. But I've included that as the last page in the study.
Not easy when you have a 30 to 55% variance and you know, that poaching continues to happen. I feel for you. But Mr. Auditor, the other thing I wanted to ask was, you know, you stated previously that while OPA is a signatory on audit contracts and is involved in the discussion of major issues, the audited agencies cut the checks to the accounting firms. This means that there's no incentive for these firms to meet the deadlines set by OPA. I've written to the budget chair, and he completely agrees that the OPA should be issuing the payments to these firms, not the audited agencies, and we're working together to ensure that language is in this year's budget. I also know that the bill that was introduced to obligate a portion of the budget to the OPA to give the office oversight on the third-party payments. So the OPA does have the attention of the legislature. But in your opinion, Mr. Auditor, is there anything else that we can do to give the OPA more teeth in ensuring compliances from the agencies? And I say that with much sincerity because I want to make sure that you know that we are definitely listening.
I'm hoping that with the follow the money and having people know who's the one that's paying, they understand. Because right now, I'm the one that signs the contract.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, I've had discussions with some of the agencies just recently because under the contract, there's a 1-year option to renew or to extend, but it's only with the concurrence and approval of the OPA. So in the contract, they know that I have power to extend, but to get them to like know that I need to know what's going on, it's imperative that we get that. And I think the plan that is set out in 302 would address that, of doing, you know, not appropriating it directly to the office, because you don't, I know some people were wondering, where did the money come from? They don't see a line item in their budgets of, but the agency has to set aside some money for that. And I could forward it to you, the amounts of the current contracts, so that you know how much is being considered. I mean, how it comes out to just under $2 million for all the contracts.
Please, Mr. Auditor.
Which is the reason why I plead with all of you, please take the time to read the financial audits.
Yeah.
We spend a good amount of money on that. In fact, the expenditure of that is more than my office operation. But the thing is that it's imperative that we look at that. And while I'm at it, I want to take this opportunity to apologize to you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of this committee that I was not able to fulfill my promise to you to get the audits out by March the 31st. I tried. I made them do Gantt charts. We're having monthly meetings with them. I almost feel like I've gotten back to juvenile court doing progress hearings with them, trying to make sure that they're on top of it. But, you know, they move at their own speed and they do what they feel they're going to do. And you know, one of them was, isn't it better that we take care of these issues? I said, well, yes, but you should do it in a timely fashion You know, if you, oh, and one, when I was talking to someone who's an educator, I said, you know that at the university, if your paper is supposed to be turned in by May the 15th, you can't just say, well, can I just have more time until I get done? You're not going to make it to commencement this weekend. So, you know, there has to be they have to understand that there is a deadline, and we gave them all deadlines of turning it in by the 28th of February, so that I could try to get it out before the 31st of March. And I apologize to the committee and to the speaker who wanted to pass that legislation, because I just couldn't. But I tried. And now I find out, well, the last audit just went out, was just issued last Friday, GDOE's. So now the Guam-wide audit can go into full swing. And I've asked Mr. Byrne to please try to get it out, to make sure that he gets it out before June the 30th. And I'm hoping that this delay in the GDOE release doesn't send this into July or March, because then you won't even be able to see the audit before you vote on the budget. And I want to make sure that that didn't happen again, but I'm trying.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
Mr.
if you talk to any of them, they will tell you that I send nasty grams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Auditor. And if you can send that information our way or through the oversight chair, I would appreciate that. One last question, Mr. Chair, and I think this is also very important. Mr. Auditor, do you believe as an in-house attorney would help to move the OPA's mission forward, and would that be a worthwhile investment rather than working with the Attorney General? I bring this question up because I know that there's issues that can... I'll have you finish.
Well, no. Currently, I have a couple of... I use some money in the office and procurement appeals when I have a conflict, and I'm really strict about my recusal if there's any conflict. So I have 2 attorneys on contract to the office, and they will sit as the administrative officers, a hearing officer, and hear the cases. Fortunately, that doesn't happen too often, and so consequently, I think my expenditure this last year for paying outside counsel was about $30,000. And I know you budgeted for more than that, but I try not to. I mean, you all know that I've been very fiscally, I'm very conservative. I just don't spend for the sake of spending. But this, I know what you're talking about is to have a prosecutor. And that is really going to take quite a bit. It's not, I could try to have an arrangement with the Attorney General's office, but, you know, some prosecution just really needs to be done by the Attorney General's office. And when I was a judge, I dragged in a couple of the Attorney General one time and the Chief Prosecutor, and wanted to know why the incestuous parent, or I shouldn't use the word parent, but person in the household was not prosecuted yet. And one of them looked at me and said, "With all due respect, Your Honor, prosecutorial discretion is ours, not yours.
Yeah.
When we file it, it is in your court. Before we file it, it's in our court."
Mr. Auditor, I wanted to make sure that I
So,
spoke that up.
you know, I don't know how we can address that, because that would be major thing to give the office prosecution authority. I know, I just realized one of the findings that we made a few years ago has been sent. They've decided, the AG made a determination to do a civil resolution of the issue. I'm a little concerned because the statute of limitations for government employees is quickly approaching. It's 3 years after they leave office. And I'm afraid that if we don't get a civil resolution and we're going to be precluded from a criminal resolution, it's... So I understand, I want to do that. It's just the work that's entailed in prosecution is not that easy. And I'll try an arrangement with them to see if maybe detailing or paying for one person to do just our work might help. And I'm game for that as a start. But to try to have a prosecution office in our office, I hesitate to. Maybe I'll think about that some more.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Auditor. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Auditor, Speaker, just for the record, I'm getting confirmation that for Bill 302, looks, it may be next week. Maybe as early as May 26th at 2 p.m. Okay?
Oh,
Yeah, it's going to be noticed. It's going to be public notice.
no.
But I'm just letting you know, that's what we're anticipating for public notice, that people of Guam are listening today.
Okay, but
And we'll work
just,
it then. Be ready.
I haven't been off for medical attention for 31 months.
Then let me know.
And I'm
hopefully.
leaving. I come back the 15th of June, anytime right after the 15th of June. If
Okay.
if we can,
Then,
please.
then I will move it. We will look at that date.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Auditor. Senator Tony Ada, you have any questions for the panel? Feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Auditor and Mr. Duenas for being here. I think, thank you to your staff for sticking with you, Mr. Auditor, on despite all the paid disparities within the Office of Public Accountability and other agencies within the Government of Guam. This goes to show their commitment to the Office of Public Accountability to ensure that, our government is keeping in line with what needs to be done and what needs to be reported to the people of Guam. I fully support your budget, and matter of fact, I support, and I'm glad my colleagues, Senator Brown and Taidigwe, had introduced that legislation so that we can hear it next week. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Probably June 15th now.
Okay, that's fine. And also for the chairman for looking for ways that we can include into the budget and then move in that process. It's concerning when you have so many vacancies within your office and not sure how you're functioning at, all cylinders firing with people missing, and it just goes to show your staff is committed, but it goes to show the leadership that you provide to your staff. And we truly appreciate it. I have absolutely no questions for your budget. I just thank you for bringing your budget proposal forward, and we look forward to getting this done, Mr. Chairman, and helping the Office of Public Accountability to move on and with their mission in keeping our government accountable.
Thank you very much, Senator. And you're right. They're amazing. They juggle various things. Besides doing their auditing work, they're chairing website committees, IT committees. They come in to my office because I think you all know I'm not even computer illiterate. I'm just computer ignorant. And I'm screaming for someone to come in and put my digital signature on something, and they come in and they take care of me. But, in normal offices, I would have had an executive secretary to at least assist me in preparing the stuff. But I can't. I can't hire an executive secretary, or I won't, because the salary for an executive secretary is more than my auditor twos, and maybe even my auditor threes. And I can't insult them by doing that. They're just going to have to suffer my asking them to come in and help me put my digital signature or to turn on the computer because it stopped.
Well, thank you for that, Public Auditor. And again, thank you to your staff of the Office of Public Accountability for all that they do. Really
Thank you,
appreciate all of them.
All right, thank you, Senator Ada. Senator Tello, do you have any questions to the auditor? Probably not much more, but go for it.
This is probably Mr. Chair, the only agency I don't have a whole lot, but to say, because I've thoroughly enjoyed reading the OPA's report, as you know that, BJ. I so appreciate the work that your office has been doing. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank Vince for your dedication to staying and all your service and your dedication staying with this agency. I want to thank you personally for that. And I know there's about 6 employees that only have under 2 years experience. With eight of them under 2 years. Wow. So that does affect the office, moving forward. But you got a great leader sitting next to you, Vince, and to help in every possible way. I mean, just talking about the ability to have training being done, and that's one question I did have with regards to the training. Is there a requirement of those individual employees to give their service to the agency after getting, because money is being spent on their education and their training in this? So do they have to?
We make them sign a contract that if we do that, then they have to stay with us X number of months or years.
Okay.
And if they don't, then they have to pay us back. Or Vince can answer.
Oh, go ahead, Vince.
Hi, good morning. My name is Vince Duenes. I realized that was one of the instructions to introduce yourself. But yes, Senator, with the grant that we have with the Department of Interior, it's actually a 2-part component. One is the trainings that we can get from conferences and stuff like that. But the main component of that grant actually deals with us getting federally trained by the federal auditors with the Department of Interior, Office of the Inspector General. And what the grant was supposed to do is pay for the entry-level auditors to go to Lakewood, Colorado, to basically shadow the federal auditors. So you could actually say all the audit staff in our office are federally trained. Wow. So with that, yes, we do offer, or we do require them, especially we're investing so much resources and the time, right, for them to attend these trainings, especially the one in Lakewood. So we make them sign that contract because, we want to make sure that what you're going to bring back, because we're investing so much in you, that you can actually put it to use. But like the public auditor was saying, and I've been with the OPA since 2003, and it's been this cycle. I've been part of this cycle. I myself went to Waterworks. I went to GWA because the salary was so attractive. And when I was sitting with the public auditor, Doris Brooks, at my exit interview, and I said, Doris, this is probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but I have a young family, I have to go take care of that. So I did, I left. And then the opportunity came about 4 years later. I spent my time at GWA. It's like going off to college, right? And then I came back and I told Doris, Doris, the salary I was able to transfer back at a little bit less salary, but not too much where it was, manageable for my family. But I said, Doris, this was the easiest decision I could ever make in terms of coming back, because the work that we do is, it's good stuff that we're doing every day for the office. So, thank you.
Well, I tell you, Vince, just that training alone makes you very valuable, and that's why these other agencies, autonomous agencies, want to snatch you up. But again, thank you so much for your dedication to staying with this office. This and like you said, a very, very valuable department and agency we have. in the government of Guam to oversee it. And before I was coming here, I was thinking in my head, I said, you know, I read all the audit reports from OPA, and they scrutinize these agencies, go in and dig deep and, you know, find any issues, and even compliments to what they're doing. But who oversees the audit report for the OPA? And I was thinking about that. And then in your testimony today, you talked about how the Republic of Palau and Commonwealth have come to the Northern Marianas to graduate schools conduct government auditing standard peer reviews. So I thought, okay, well, great. So we've got, you know, that kind of hand in hand. We work with our brothers and sisters from the other islands to come here and do their audit with you. And then I'm sure you do, well, I'm not sure, but do you also do the same, reciprocate? You go to their islands and over. So is that how it works?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But we can't go to the islands that audited us, trying to make sure that there isn't no collusion.
Collusion,
you know.
yeah. Well, that, I haven't heard that in a while, collusion. But you know, speaking of just doing things remotely, I mean, it can be done, right? I noticed that, you know, during COVID, some of your staff was working remotely. And that's very convenient, especially for, you know, parents who have children at home and they're able to, you know, be able to do two things at one time, take care of the family and be able to work at home. Like I said, it's such a convenience, you know, to be able to do that. Are you planning on continuing that type of work environment for some of your employees?
I was suggesting it. I was suggesting teleworking since I first got to the office before COVID.
Yep.
But they were so trained that they were hesitant. I mean, I had to almost fight them. I kept insisting, you should be able to telework. I mean, I telework whenever I travel for medical or for other reasons, and you should be able to do that too. But they're really strict about their time, and to their credit. But once we did this during COVID, they now realize it. We now have a VPN. Things are safe. They can get the information back and forth. And so I try to let them do it as much as possible. And that may be the only way that I'm keeping some of the more senior ones, because we all have outside responsibilities, children and parents, and you know, as I kept telling them since I first got there, I'm not Stamper at 8 to 5. I just have work that you need to do. If you get it done, I don't care if it's between 8 and 5 or it's between 8 at night to 5 in the morning. Just as long as it gets done, that's all I care about.
Sounds good. I hope that this practice run from COVID, you know, proves that point and makes it more, you know, enticing to stay at your agency because of that type of work environment. You know, one thing I've constantly read all your audit reports, and then when I come to these budget hearings, I make sure that I have a copy of that to review. It's very, very helpful, you know, in asking the agencies, you know, on their issues. But one thing I didn't have a chance to really get my hands into is your procurement appeals. And never really dug into that. I mean, there's a whole area, but the OPA suggests that the procedures for judicial review needs to be clarified to be similar to judicial reviews of other administrative agency decisions under Guam law. So can you please summarize those procedures with OPA recommends to clarify for post-op OPA appeals?
Yes, currently the way that the law reads is that you can take your appeal from the OPA to the court, Superior Court, on appeal for review. The problem is that when they do it, they list it as a civil action, and so it's Telo Taitagui versus the Office of Public Accountability. But at the Superior Court, when Judge Barcenas issues a decision, and it's appealed, it's appeal of the case that was before him, it never mentions the judge or the Superior Court. It just is appealed up to the Supreme Court as People versus Benjamin Cruz. It never becomes People versus, and the judge is not asked to come upstairs to explain his decision. The parties are the ones that involved are the ones that explain how the decision was made. But the current way that it's being done, my office is listed as the defendant, and consequently, I have to hire outside counsel to represent the office to go to court to address this. And the question's very timely, and I thank you for that. Just this last year, the Superior Court has been addressing this issue. One of the judges asked, is it proper to have the Public Auditor, Office of Public Accountability as a named party defendant? And he wanted it briefed. And so they briefed it, and they argued it before one of the judges, and he just issued his decision recently that the way the law is written, it's going to have to stay with the Office of Public Accountability being listed as a defendant. But ideally, it would be just a judicial review of the case without naming the, because I keep wondering whether or not I'm going to be personally liable for my decision. And I thank you for the question. I have proposed legislation, and I'd be willing to send it to the committee to have it being considered. I don't know if it's appropriate to have it in the budget bill, but a separate piece of legislation. If somebody wants to do that, I would really appreciate that.
I'll be happy to do that and work with the oversight chair of the judicial branch, which is Speaker Therese Terlahi, and I know that Senator Brown is very interested in correcting that. So I'm glad I brought that up, and hopefully the senators that are here today too will support that legislation. I'll work on that right away.
Yeah, the decision just came out on May the 6th, I think.
Yeah,
so.
Just recently. Yeah, okay, so.
So it's very timely.
Yeah. So it's nice having you in the building too, because make it convenient to go up to your office to, discuss these matters. And, but I've greatly, profusely have been very pleased with the comments that you made to these agencies who are late with their audits. You have been very colorful at some of those board meetings. It was just ironic. We had the director of the Port Authority in here just boasting about all the great things he's done, and he's been probably the one that was the latest in providing his report. But his audit report, it's just, and I'm pretty sure he was trying to fix the discrepancies. That's why he was so late. But I greatly appreciate you showing up to those board meetings and pushing that envelope, because it's important for this body, to get those reports into us right away to see where this government is. Right now there's just this frenzy of spending, out there without even collaborating with the legislature on where we're going to fund all this funding, this money that they're spending. Where are we going to get the funding? We're in an artificial economy right now. Things are not a reality that's sitting on our desk or in our CRER reports. I mean, the only thing that's realistic is in the special funds, which is trailing below projected revenues. I'm looking forward to you doing your assessment on the Government of Guam audit that's thorough, that goes through every account and tell us where we are. So it's so important this agency gets all the support they need, that you require, and I stand in full support of this. So I look forward to working, again, continuing with the bills that we're going to be introducing shortly on your behalf. And again, please tell your staff, thank you for their service, and most especially their dedication to the Office of Public Accountability. Thank you, BJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel that hasn't been asked yet? But go for it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I mean, certainly a lot of the key points have been brought up with regards to the budget and the issues at the Office of Public Accountability. certainly want to thank our public auditor and his staff for the work that they do. Certainly in looking at all of the audit reports that have come out of your office, I think you have, I mean, granted there are areas where a department or agency may need to strengthen, as you say, their processes or their procedures. And you're very good at outlining that in the report, and also the follow-up I know that you do in a department or agency. I mean, you come in and you consult with them with regards to the audit, and then once the audit findings are completed, you come back and you go over that with them as well. And certainly in some cases, it may be just minor. They need to get their house in order, so to speak. And I'm sure you'll follow up that if they don't, then you take it to the next level. But there are, unfortunately, areas of this government where there's outright abuse of public money and public resources. And we've seen it, your office has reported on it, and I think it's important that beyond the report, that, you know, we get the report and it's there, and then we look at it and we go, wow, that's very concerning, and then it goes back on the shelf. We certainly want your office to have a more effective ability to take it to the next level. And as you mentioned, Mr. Public Auditor, you know, it's not so much you have a prosecutor at your office, but hopefully if we're able to facilitate through Bill 302, that you are able to have an assistant attorney general or attorney generals if you need more than one, because I'm not an advocate. I'm like you. I'm very fiscally conservative. I'm not just for, oh, let's throw money at the problem and it's going to make it go away. And as you see, sir, you see a lot of increases right now that the governor has proposed, I mean, just most recently. And again, we don't argue the need or desire or you know, ensuring that people get pay raises and that they're not deserving of it. But we're also concerned, certainly I am, from my standpoint here, are we able to pay for it all? It's very easy to give and say, oh, you know, I often use the analogy of Santa Claus. We want to be Santa Claus, and we want to give everything away, and then everyone will love us and vote for us, and we'll be here forever. But right now, you know, just recently with the proposal of $30+ million for Department of Education, we had the increase of $18 million earlier this year for law enforcement. Yesterday, we were talking with the hospital. $6.3 million for the nurses. I mean, that adds over $54 million to the obligations of the government of Guam that the governor unilaterally has determined should be added to the budget without any real engagement or review of this legislature, which is obviously our role in the three branches of government to address appropriations. So you don't have the consolidation of power in a single office. There's always dangers in that, as we know. And in our democracy, that's why the three branches of government have been created. But in your particular case, and what you're asking for your budget is very modest. I mean, a little over $350,000, very modest increase for the work that you do. So I have no argument with that. But I feel it's also critically important because now that we have a budget that's almost exceeding $1 billion for the government of Guam. When I left, we're looking at $550, $600 million and debating that. We used to debate those amounts. Now we're over $1 billion. And I think it's critically important that we also ensure, more importantly than anything else, that that money is being properly spent. And if there's misuse and abuse of those funds, certainly the work of you and your auditors, if that comes to light, and it's a flagrant abuse, obviously, I'm very one for the books. I want to see consequence to that. And not so much to punish people, but I want it to be a deterrent to prevent people and public officials in their capacity from misusing their authority. And we've seen it time and time again. It's unfortunate in government, but it exists. And if the message is out there that, hey, if you do this, if you misspend public money, there's going to be a consequence to that. And if there's a consequence to that, then hopefully more people just don't go down that road to abuse. And it could be something, Mr. Auditor, as you know, they take the official vehicle, and I've seen it. I've seen it in my oversight of a department because we had a tracker in the vehicle. They just drive around all day. Just drive around, kill time, they stop at the store, get a drink or a snack, and it's 4 o'clock, let's go back to the compound set. We got to show that we've been working. And I've seen that abuse. I've also seen a case, you know, of misuse where I've got government employees hustling people in our community for money and misusing their official authority to extract money because they're on drugs and they're trying to get extra money and using their official credentials to do that. And that's wrong. That's just downright wrong. So in hoping either through the bill itself or the bill gets incorporated in the Budget Act, I definitely am a very strong advocate of your office because I think there's a critical need for it. We can't just expect for people, maybe they'll report it, because a lot of people working in an agency or department, as you know, are very hesitant because they fear consequence. They fear, and let's not kid ourselves, can be all the way to the Atenbaba look to all of a sudden you get the bad assignment, or all of a sudden you get detailed elsewhere, and get harassed because, maybe it's their higher-ups that are abusing their capacity. So I don't have any questions for you, sir. I think you've articulated very well the need of your office. And I'm fairly confident our colleagues will be supportive of it because there's a need. We have to have some comfort level that there's an entity, a critical entity in our government that is going out and doing this kind of review to ensure that the money that's being appropriated on behalf of the people is getting where it needs to go. And if there's funny business going on, your office is going to be able to determine, especially with regards to the fiscal integrity of our government. So I appreciate all the work that you do and certainly will continue to be an advocate of supporting your office to do the very job that it does. So thank you very much, and to your staff as well. I want to keep and retain. If there's anywhere else I'll advocate, and I don't for other agencies, I want to ensure fiscal responsibility throughout the government. But for your office, I think your office needs to be effectively equipped with the resources that it needs to do its job. So with that, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further questions or comments with regards to the Public Auditor and his office, and thank them for their continued work on behalf of our people.
Thank you very much, Senator.
All right, thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Moylan, the last. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Auditor. Thank you for your presentations. It's nice to talk to my neighbor on the floor. I appreciate you pointing out where I should be looking at the audits, and it's really helpful to help me understand more. So thank you for your hard work. I appreciate your written report expressing over the last 2 years, at least 10 employees have left OPA, many of them having received double-digit increases in salary at their new position. You really made it detailed and showing it that they go to other government agencies. We see the same thing, I think, as well with our peace officers. From different peace officers in different departments, whether DOC, agriculture, or the customs and quarantines, and then you can compare it with the Port Authority or the airport as well. So the discrepancy and the parity is, we need to have that. Now you're pointing out this in light, a good light here, that we can, it's across the board, right? And your solution is excellent for that. And so as long as we just don't give everybody across the board another 18% because the parity, it's just not there. It's still a problem. And then we're going to continue to lose good people from your department after you finally get them trained. So I appreciate the detail. I appreciate you giving us the answers on what we need to do. And thank you so much for your report, and thank you for your hard work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. Mr. Auditor, one question slip. Did you get any ARP money?
No.
Okay. And I remember we discussed that during our meeting. But, we're pretty much done. Gosh, record time, Speaker. Less than 2 hours. Sounds great. But you know what? I always ask, and because you're a former judge, I'm a former tax investigator, I'm always very careful what I ask for, because sometimes when we get too much, you got to fill it. We got to just produce the product. And I hope the best for the Office of Public Accountability, because I've supported you since you got elected, and I told you I'll help you in whatever you need. Just let me know. But we're going to make sure it looks good that the public notice will go out. It'll probably be right after when you come back on June 16 at 5 p.m. Okay, so when you ask for after the 15th, so I give you 1 day grace. And I know you like to fly fast anyway, BJ. You're good at this. That being said, the notice will go out. Vince will know. Don't go to any courses, Vince, okay? Get ready for that hearing, okay? The committee will conclude this budget hearing. The committee will continue to receive testimony in reference to the pay increase and so forth, so we can add it to this bill, this budget bill. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriations, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. and Agustin at @gmail.com, or to my office located at Rand Care Building, second floor, Suite 203, 761 South Marine Corps Drive, Tamuning, Guam. Since much for your attendance, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Auditor, and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 276 COR relative to the Office of Public Accountability is duly heard and now adjourned. It is 10:07. Please enjoy the rest of your day, sir. Thank you.